Now we have a topic called schema validation. When we need to have a certain kind of schema according to the needs of our application, we can create validation schema by which if we pass a new documents, it gets validated whether it would be passed in the collection or not according to the validation schema. So here we had our post collection. We drop that collection and then we see here we don't have that anymore. So when we just write the name of the collection and start inserting, we create that implicitly. But here is a method to actually create a collection, which is db.createCollection, and then we pass the name of the collection there, and then we give another document where we have the validator. So here we will pass the validator and create a validation schema that any new document will have to pass through in order to get accepted. So after passing through validation schema can be accepted or rejected or given a warning and accepted according to the need that we set here in the validator. So here we have validator and then JSON schema. So JSON type object, we have to pass it as objects and required. These are the required fields that we have to have in a post. You have title, text, creator, comments, something like tags is not required because these four fields are required to have in any new document that we pass through this validator to be added into the collection. And then the properties. In properties of title, title must be a string. So we have this base type and then we give a description must be a string. For text also it has to be a string. Then creator has to be an object ID. So like we give the object ID of the creator. This is a condition. Then comments must be an array. And then items, base type object. And then again in that required text and author. So in comments field, we have two fields here, text and author. Then again, text must be a string and author must be an object ID. So like we provide object ID of author in the comments. So the required fields we pass through this validation schema by using this validator function here. So we run this, and when we see post.find, we don't have any post right now. We just created a validation schema. Yeah, so this is the same. We create this validation schema and then we insert one, the the same previous document that we had. We insert this and then we find one. This gets passed successfully. But here, if we try to change anything here, for example, in author, for example, we set n number here and we are using that as a reference. So we will see that it will give this error, document failed validation, because here we set the validation that author has to be an object ID. So we cannot give it anything else. This will give a document failed validation error. Now this gets rejected here, but if we want to just give a warning and still accept the document with a warning, so we can use this validation action warn. So we have a slightly different set of commands here. We have db.run command and then call mode. So this is the collection modifier. give the name of the collection that we have to modify here, and then validator, and in the end of validator we have this validation action won. So here we see that when we insert this with author 12 something different than what is in the validation schema, it still gets passed, but it gives a warning in the log, in the log book that we have in our system, the logs, it will give a warning there. Now in MongoDB, while using MongoDB server, we have a lot of options that we can use here. So when we run MongoDB server by using this MongoD, and if we write this, it is help. So we have a lot of options here, like general options. This is the information help. Here we have this port. Here, if we want to specify the port number, this is the default port number in MongoDB that we have here. We can use another port number also. So here we have these two important options. One is log path and another is db path. Here we have db path. So this is the directory for the data files, the data that we have. db path is where the data gets stored, and log path is where the logs get stored in our system. So here we can create our own path and store the db path and log path in those particular directories. So here in in folder, in a bin folder, if we create two new folders, one is db and one is logs. To store the path, these are the paths that we will give to store the data and logs here. So here in a command prompt, if we write this mongod and this slash uh, db path, and then we give the path of the db folder, we want to give the path of the db where data gets stored. So this creates this instance, and this is running. And then when we see here in the folder, this was an empty folder that we just created, and it adds these into it. Here we have wire tiger. This is the storage engine. Wire tiger is a default storage engine in the mongodb. It is a very high performance. And then for logs also, we can run our server, and then we can use this mongod log path, and then we give a path of the logs folder, and then we create another file from here in the logs folder, log.log. So when we run this, it does not display here, but here it creates a file and gives the output here. So these are all the messages in the logs: successfully registered, starting, MongoDB starting. So whatever warning also, it will be given here. We have many other useful options here. Like here we have this repair option. If a database gets corrupted somehow, we can use this option here. This Fire Tiger is the default storage engine in MongoDB. We have authentication options. This is like the options in the server. Also in the shell, we can have many options also. So if you open command prompt again, and we use this mongosh and then help. So these are the options that we have in a shell. These are very less than what we have in the server. And we have these authentication options. Mhm. Now, just like the workbench that we have in MySQL, here we have this compass that we can also use to create databases, collections, and then write documents into it. So we created this contact data, this new database, and then this collections of contacts here. Here we have all our databases, and here we can create a new database and the collection name. And then in that, here we have the add data option. We can import a JSON file or we can insert the document here. So we created this one document here with ID. This object ID is automatically given here. And then we pass this name, age, location. So we pass a JSON document here. We write this, we give location as an object, we give this type, and then coordinates, we create an array here. So give this document. Here we have option to edit document, delete document, clone, and so here we will have all our documents. And here we have an option to type a query to search for a particular document. For example, here if we write age 29 and find, so we will have this one document where we add the age 29. So here we have a lot of options that we will see later, aggregations and indexes. Here we have the option to analyze our schemas. Here we can add validation rules that we just saw.